Well, wasn't John Gotti locked up at the same time in MCC?
Yes. Yes.
And you got to know him?
Back in the day, they had all the Hells Angels, all the Ghost Shadows, the Chinese street gangs from, Chinatown, and all the 5 families got arrested. In fact, I was up on a tier. I was in 9th South. That's lockdown, the 23 hours lockdown. Same thing. And they were bringing, the guy was coming up, and now the guy's opening my cell door, and John Gotti's standing right behind him. I said, oh, shit, John Gotti, we're going to be cellmates. Next thing I hear, don't put him in with Zito. Put him in somebody else, because I was the president of my charter at the time, and he was who he was. They figured we want to talk about, crime instead of our families and what happened and everything else. So they put him in another cell. And the next day, of course, we saw each other because they let you out for an hour and you're allowed to eat together. And like I said, there was all the Ghost Shadows there, the Hells Angels, and all the wise guys.
Well, according to the Justice Department, they claimed the Hells Angels in New York were affiliated with the Gambino crime family. You heard this before?
You hear all that stuff all the time,
So they were trying to tie you into this whole organization.
They try to tie everybody together, so.
Yeah. Well, you actually attended John Gotti's funeral.
Yes.
Yeah. So did you guys keep in contact after you left, or?
Well, he died in prison. I mean, he was in prison, so, I went to his funeral, because like he says, I met him and we became friends and, showed my respect. Yeah. So I went there.
Now, were you offered?
I showed up.
Yeah.
I showed up with a suit and tie. Instead of wearing a jacket, because I knew there was going to be paparazzi all over the place and feds taking pictures and everything else. And what they did was, where it was they closed down the street. So you had to walk a block. And that's where they got everybody.
Right.
Because instead of getting right to the door and walk right in, they shut the whole street down. So the feds were there taking pictures. In fact, they took a picture, Chuck Zito, Hells Angel, shows up to John Gotti's funeral.
Did you ever come in contact with his son, John Gotti Jr.?
Yes.
What's your take on him?
I know them. I mean,
it is what it is. Now, while you were locked up and you were having other Hells Angels cooperate.
Yes.
Against you.
Yes.
Were you offered a deal? Hey, cooperate and we'll make all this go away?
You know what? And me, back in the day, trying to be a tough guy and everything, he offered me a year. He offered me a year. And I says, look, I never made a phone call. All right, so, and they offered Bert 3 years. 3 years.
One-eyed Bert?
One-eyed Bert, yeah.
Yeah.
So they offered him 3 years and me a year. And we said, look, I never made a phone call. Fuck these guys. I'm not taking a plea. But, without being, thinking, I would have did another 4 months and I would have been home because I already got time served 4 months in Japan.
Right.
I would have did another 4 months in New York and I would have went home. But I had to be a tough guy. We both decided not to take a plea. I got 10 years. He got 14 years.
Well, right. You pled guilty to one felony count of drug conspiracy.
I pled guilty, to a telephone count.
Okay.
That's what I pled guilty to. A telephone count, which was only 4 years. I got 10.
Right. You got sentenced to 10 years for that.
Yes.
What if you had actually gone to trial and lost? What do you think you would have faced in that case?
Probably the same.
Right, because 10 years is a lot.
Yeah, 10 years is a lot.
For a phone call.
Back in the day. Like I said, a phone count's 4 years. I got 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I went to trial, I didn't have the money anyway to go to trial because lawyers get paid a lot of money.
Right, especially a big trial
but instead
like
of being, like I said, hey, fuck you, I'm not taking a plea. I didn't make no phone call. I was stubborn. If I took the plea, I would have did 4 more months. I would have been home with my family. Instead, I wound up not taking a plea, got 6 years. And
well, you got 10, but you ended up serving 6 years.
I got, yeah. And it turned out to be a Rule 35. I wound up getting 7 from the 10. And then I lost my good time because they had a food strike. They blamed me for the food strike in Otisville. And I wound up getting all my good time served, and they shipped me to Louisiana.
Yeah, you were all over the place. New York,
19
Pennsylvania,
different prisons.
Virginia, Louisiana, Alabama, Oklahoma, Missouri.
Yes, 19 different prisons I was at in 6 years.
Crazy. I remember when I read Sonny Barger's book, the one thing that he stressed, which was interesting to me, was that a lot of these gangs that get busted, everyone starts telling against each other. But he said the thing about the Hells Angels, that in general, they hold their tongues.
Yeah.
That when these big kind of, sweeping indictments happen, the Hells Angels will sit there and just be silent. No one would cooperate, and a lot of times the charges would be dropped. But in your case, you actually had other Hells Angels cooperate against you?
Yes. That's why you know who's who in the zoo when it comes down.
Yeah.
Because there was guys rolling over in a police car on the way to the police station.
Yeah.
Crazy. So guys like myself and Bert, we just held our own and, did our sentence, and that was it. But it was just, it wasn't even me. Because I was with Hells Angels. I mean, most of the time. Other times I was with, other clubs that we never got along with. But it was my family. My wife used to have to get on a plane. I mean, I was, like I said, I was all over the place.
Yeah.
I was in, Leavenworth. I was in Talladega, Alabama. I was in, Springfield, Missouri, Petersburg, Virginia. 19 different prisons in 6 years. Guys get their time. Guys do their time in one place. I was traveled 19 different times.